This is this is how does a boss get a raise, and can you help a brother out? That's kind of a cumbersome title for the today's pod, but it's a discussion about two of our friends. One repeat from yesterday, and one even more powerful than he. It's the two most influential non-bachelors but behave like bachelors in the world, which are Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping. How does a brother get a raise? As I was, excuse me, how does a boss get a raise? As I was sharing in the stream this morning, and there are no accidents, of course. There are no, perhaps no coincidences. When if Vladimir's a little bit short of money, what's the easiest way for him to pad his pockets? Now, again, this is not about what he's doing for the Russian economy. This is not what he's doing for the good of the Russian people. This is his 27th year of padding his own portfolio aggressively through duress, threats, threats of violence, actual violence, murder, mayhem, and ballyhoo, if you prefer. So, how does he get a raise when the oil price, as I put in the feed earlier this morning, when it spiked since the Iran invasion, and just using the spot price of Brent crude, when it goes above 80, then that means that Vladimir Putin has an additional, oh, $250 million at his disposal daily. Now, you will quite reasonably argue and push back to say, yeah, you idiot, that money doesn't flow directly to him. There are there are costs of extracting oil from the ground. There are transportation and storage costs. There are other costs associated with extracting minerals and petroleum from the earth, and costs associated with the natural gas, which also spiked, and he can FAFO with that as he cares to, as he's done before. 3 years ago in this never-ending Ukrainian crisis, when he has his ships go out and chop the gas lines from um, from the Nordic countries, and and thereby increasing the cost, increasing the amount that he can charge and collect by creating scarcity through using weapons of war to increase the value of natural gas. Uh, a lot of Western Europe has leaned away from Russia in favor of the Gulf. But if you have been paying any attention to the news, things are a little bit fractious in the Gulf at the moment. So if you are in Omani or other natural gas exporter, you've got some very real concerns. Both, incoming missiles and natural gas tankers are not a natural fit, and also there is the stranglehold in the Gulf region when the Iranian proxies and the Iranians themselves, the remaining, this is hard, the remaining Iranians who the Quds Force and the IRGC that are still in possession of weapons, of missiles, fewer and fewer of those as time goes on, and drones, which they have I won't say an endless supply because their manufacturing capacity is adversely impacted by what's going on now. Meaning, if you're getting bombed, it's hard to get a good day's work done. But this is all they got, so they're prepared. They have fissionable material. They have nuclear material. They have missiles. They have drones, and they have proxies. And those are all under assault from your boy uh, Pete Hegseth, who is just covering himself in things much dirtier than cow dung every time he speaks. And this relationship with Anthropic, which I opined on in the feed this morning, is what they're doing is they're allowing their Trump and Hegseth and the administration is allowing their pride and their culture wars to get in the way of military preparedness and the effectiveness of their strategy because they're sad, because they're angry, because they have a grievance against anybody that tells them no. And Dario didn't say no. He said, contingent on my very reasonable requirements, which were communicated well in advance of this very moment. So the fact that they're allowing grievance to essentially that will result in additional American deaths, whether they are service members or civilians. More Americans will die because of the peevishness of the Pentagon and their fearless leader. So yeah. So the answer of how does a boss get a raise, right? All he needs to do is create conditions where the oil price goes. Now, and you'll not be surprised to learn that OPEC Plus is dominated by Vladimir Putin, right? And then the leaders of KSA and UAE and a bunch of other countries run by various wastrel potentates, right? So they this is a good. They're under pressure from Trump to keep oil prices down because they're going to. Anytime there's a war or there's a conflict in the Gulf, the oil prices go up, and the American president says, "Do something." One thing that he may be doing right now while I'm talking to you is announcing a release of the strategic petroleum reserves. That has a short-term effect on world markets. And the US has plenty. We make plenty of our own. The way that we make it, the fracking portion of the program, is of course, destroying our the ecological stability of our country. But that's for another day. We have service men and women in harm's way right this minute. So we're not going to argue about ESG, always argue about DEI because that's another issue that is hurting military readiness and degrading the U.S. military's ability to execute their mission, the strategy. DEI, their anti-woke, anti-DEI policies harm the military. It's not open to debate. The degree to which I can't tell you. Will it cost X number of American lives? Don't know today, but what I do know is that it takes away, it it diminishes the diversity of ideas and opinions in the military, in the planning process, in the strategy sessions. When you're firing people at not at random, but because you're taking a cross section of the military and saying because you're black or female or brown, you're gone. Are you asking them what they can contribute? What are their core competences, and how could those particular skills add to military effectiveness and readiness? No, you're allowing the cultural genocide that the Trump administration is undertaking. Project 2025, Trump administration, Steve Bannon, all of those, Russell Vogt, all of those clowns are doing a cultural genocide that is eliminating people based on the color of their skin or their gender without regard for how that's going to diminish readiness, preparedness, intellectual integrity, all of those things. So bad on them. Continued bad. I mean, and your Congress, particularly the most handsome coward in the United States, John Thune, remain on the sidelines, silent, coward, hiding in the corner, afraid to upset the king because it might have a political impact, as opposed to Thune saying, I've got 4 or 6 grandchildren. I'm going to teach a valuable lesson to those in my family, those of my constituents, and those in my church, is I'm going to stand up for what's right. And instead, he's hiding his handsome face and doing nothing and allowing it. So that's just a reminder, collective action and otherwise, that each and every member of the Republican Party that has allowed this to go forward deserves to lose their job. If any Democrats have behaved similarly, they also deserve to lose their job. Haven't seen any of those, and there's so many on the Republican side. Perhaps I'm missing something. I've watched some of the Hillary Clinton, you know, grilling on the Epstein file, deposition, distraction from Chappaqua, and uh, and I just hope that Donald Trump will be there to answer questions, because that's probably the a fair thing to do. Howard Lutnick, sure, but kind of asked and answered on Lutnick. He lied about his relationship to Epstein, but a lot of people have lied about it. It doesn't mean Lutnick Lutnick, who said, you know, yeah, I made a mistake. I was had lunch with him on a boat and then lunch with him again when we got to land. But I was with my kids and my wife and my kids' nannies, plural, as if that excuses his behavior. Perhaps he's suggesting that I'm not going to have sex with underage children in the presence of my daughters. That's believable. I'm down with that. I will co-sign that as a father of double X humanoids. That was something that you would probably never want to do. Is have unlawful carnal knowledge with a woman in front of your minor female children. Probably bad look. Kind of like how that 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 wonderful clip of Donald Trump with Ivanka on Howard Stern. It's like, yeah, you understand about a sexual predator. You are one. Ha ha ha. Yeah. So congratulations to the people that voted for him. So, yeah. So here's I'm with you that if it's $250 million a day, right, and you want to chop off a little bit for storage costs and transportation and extraction and all of that stuff, that's fine. But he can write unlimited checks. He needs to find places to put the money. That's his problem. The rest of us, we're concerned about where we have to go to earn it and what we have to do with and to whom to earn the money. Putin has to find places to hide it, you know? So that's his that's his biggest issue. But it's not a big one because he's been doing it for 27 years. He's a KGB vet. He's an assassin. And I got some comments on another platform, not on Substack, uh, that I've seen yet about the is it is it in bad taste that I am showing what was viewed by some as admiration for somebody who's guilty of war crimes. When you get to a certain age, you have to take things by episodes. I have a hard time, you know, when black and white is easy when you're a kid, and then you learn that the world is gray, and nobody, almost nobody, Manson, Dahmer, right? Um, Nobody's all one thing. Nobody's all good, all bad. Everybody is varying degrees of somewhere in the middle. Do I think that Vladimir Putin loved his mother? I do. I'm pro mother. I wish I still had one to talk to every day. It's a decade in my past. Do I think that at the time that Mrs. Putin, I can't remember the matronymic, but Vladimir's mother was alive? I'm sure he loved her, and I'm sure that he loves his country. He wants a bigger country to love, and he's done some absolutely horrible things. But I appreciate the complexity of the game that he's been playing for decades, even though the United States is on the losing end of that relationship and will continue to be, has been, will be, you know, because there's nobody that is Marco Rubio going to reverse, become once again, a reborn Russia hawk after Trump and go to Moscow with a force sufficient to take Vladimir Putin into custody? No, he's not, because he will be the viceroy of Havana at that point, and he will be probably too fat and happy to do anything else, assuming he doesn't win the presidential election, which I'm hoping is doubtful for both he and JD Vance. But I'm concerned about Mario. I'm scared for the country of JD Vance getting into that position because of the coddling the Nazis. Now, Vladimir Putin, famous for coddling Nazis, he's one of the leading fundraisers for the AFD, right? Alternative for Germany, the what I call, as a matter of convenience, they are right wing extremist party. Do is it unfair to call that party the Nazi Party when the Nazi Party meant something very dark in Germany's past? A little bit unfair, but they behave like Nazis, so it's hard. They're ethno-fascists. So when you behave like an ethno-fascist, people are going to make the easy analogy, and you can pick apart the individual characteristics that distinguish ethno-fascists from Nazis. But by the time you get done with that, I'm going to use the 2-syllable 4-letter word because it conveys the dire nature of the situation we're about to get to in Germany and France. And Vladimir Putin is intimately involved in both. Intimately. Fundraising. He delivered funds to Marine Le Pen and to her father. He did that. He continues to make sure that their rally is well funded. It's very disconcerting because who's the cop on the beat? The U.S. is no longer the cop on the beat. The U.S. is involved in violence, but they're not doing anything for the world order or democracy. They're in fact working against it for corrupt purposes. So let's skip over from how does the boss get a raise to can you help a brother out? While all of this is going on in Iran, there's a handsome, tall gentleman named Xi Jinping in Beijing. What does he want to accomplish? Is he wants to repatriate Taiwan to China, much like Hong Kong was repatriated with all the grace and dignity that you could have expected. This has been a long-term goal of the Chinese Communist Party. What has kept them from doing it sooner, you could argue, is democratic norms. I'm not saying that Xi Jinping was not cowering in fear in his country home, thinking about Joe Biden coming to beat the heck out of him. That isn't what was happening. But that the sort of rules-based order that govern the universe, which Trump has been doing everything he can to to eviscerate, that kind of kept everybody marching in line in their own spheres. And it's still the spheres thing, and that Taiwan is in China's sphere, and it's unfortunately it's a done deal. It's a foregone conclusion that Taiwan will be at some point, quote unquote, repatriated or realigned or however you want to re-educated, indoctrinated, and that's going to happen. She has also had in the past 2.5 years, there have been approximately 40 people, 40 generals, or people in that at that level that have been purged, and there's another 60 that have been essentially disappeared. And I'm not smiling because it's funny, because there are a lot of these folks that be being disappeared in China can be a one-way street. It's not like, hey, where you been? Well, I've been kicking it in northern Australia, swimming with a shark. No, these people are oftentimes locked up and isolated for very long periods of time without the niceties of even a trial. So, don't have to be a military expert to realize that if you eliminate, call it 100 senior military officers, even in you know, China is a absolutely immense, you know, t- 8 point whatever X US, right, pop wise. And they're, as I've said before, they have over 600,000 intelligence officers. That's not guys with guns. They may have guns, but I mean not military. These are just intelligence officers that are tasked with finding out what Jensen Wong is doing and trying to collect, which is a polite way of saying, to conduct industrial espionage, right? To clip IP. That's what they do for their job, their day job and their night job. But is China ready with all of the disappearances, demotions, and more grisly details? Have they put the military ranks back together in such a way that gives Xi the confidence that they can execute what will be a not uncomplicated military operation? I don't know. You don't know, presumably. We can read reports. We can look at think pieces by, American Enterprise Institute, other think tanks of note and of great intelligence and reputation. But all of us are kind of pissing in the breeze because it's China and it's opaque. But if there were a time to go, I would say it's getting pretty close to go time. You have a new leader in Japan, you know, the first new arrival in Xi's sphere that threatens his autonomy over the entire region, over that sphere, that Asian sphere, which he will control. He does control it. He will, right? But Sanae Takaichi, right? The new Japanese prime minister, she did the total boss vote, right? Calling what essentially a snap election just months into her term because she knew which way the wind was blowing. And she absolutely destroyed in the polls, absolutely hammered the opposition, as was expected. But the degree to which she succeeded, I think, surprised even the most optimistic. And part of her platform is we're not going to get bossed by China. We are equal players in the region. This is our region too. We are a great power, and they are. They are because of the laws following the Second World War. They are somewhat behind in development of sophisticated weapon systems, both offensive and defensive. And they're moving on to that. But as you know, that isn't, you don't get that fixed overnight. Just pull this together. So as I'm getting snowed on, but it's actually quite nice. It's, I think probably around 28 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's not cold enough for it to snow instead of rain. And we're going to get pelted with snow and then rain. And then in northern Massachusetts, we're going to have what looks like 6 or 7 days where the temperature is going to stay above 40 degrees Fahrenheit, which will be nice because we still have 2.5 feet of snow on the ground. And it would be nice to kind of change the scenery and at least fool us into the belief that we're moving into spring. Although who knows? I have I've experienced April Fool's Day snowstorms before, so yeah. So if I were, and I am not, if you could not tell, I am not Xi Jinping. I am not. I am not his confidant. I am not his advisor. I am not on his speed dial list, nor is he on mine. I'd love to meet the gentleman. He's an important world figure, but I don't know that he's ready to come on the pod yet. You know, time will tell. I'm open. So I'm leaving the door open for him. But for now, if I have a Japan rising, I have maximum disruption, and I have almost every conceivable American asset focused on Iran, and even the most sophisticated aircraft carrier months past scheduled maintenance, needing to get, as soon as they get done in the Gulf, they need to zip across the ocean and get to Virginia for to flush the toilets and then do all the other scheduled work. You know, if I were Xi and it's Taiwan, and I'm not wishing this for my legitimate friends in Taiwan, my family, friends here in the US that are from Taiwan and have parents and relatives there. I'm not wishing that upon anybody. but we're not doing which as a strategy because it don't connect. I would say it's go time because who's going to say no? Who's going to say no? And when Xi can pick up the phone and say, Vladimir, appreciate what you're doing right now, causing disruption, adding disruption to the Iranian crisis and to elections more broadly, and all of the things that he's doing. Can you juice it a little bit because I got something going on this weekend, and it would be very helpful to me if all eyes remained on the former Persian Empire because I got some cleanup on aisle 6 that I really got to take care of. What do you think? Can you help a brother out? So that's a brother in the autocracy sense. That's in the authoritarian sense. That's in an aligned philosophical sense. That's Voda and that's G. And of course, they're going to help each other out because there's not a lot of places they can turn for help. There are fewer and fewer that we can turn to in the world because we've burned bridges with the rude, obstinate, stupid, undisciplined behavior displayed by the Trump administration. We're losing allies, not gaining them at a time when we need to gain them. But we're the most powerful military, not named China, in the world. So we can get a lot of things done on our own. We have our friends in Israel on this mission, but you know, for the sake of argument, extending extending for the sake of argument, alignment with Israel past this period from today going into the midterm elections. Trump, even with you know Jared Kushner and his being married to the mob, uh, he said facetiously, he's going to need to, at least rhetorically, Trump is going to need to distance himself a little bit from Israel because the way that the wind is blowing in the United States, I mean, J.D. Vance, Nazi tendencies, Tucker Carlson, whose son works for J.D. Vance, Lindsey Graham, and Nick Fuentes, and others. The way the winds are blowing, they're going to have to put a little bit of distance between the U.S. and Israel. Israel will always have the U.S. support, but it's going to have to be a little less overt going into the midterms. Now, I hope they blow it. I hope they blow it because obviously I want a major resounding victory in the House and Senate for the Democratic Party, right? For progressives in the midterms. I want a resounding an ass whooping. So in any case, we it's fun. I often say fun because you have to love the history, the legal part of the program, political science, national security, those all those parts that go to make the mosaic of the world we're living in right now. That's it's endlessly interesting. And you can say that even while you can mourn the loss of American troops because it's real. And by turning your head or running away or not facing it is not helping anybody. Taking a principled stand by refusing to speak about bad issues is exactly the wrong approach. In fact, refusing to speak about hard realities is how the Democratic Party got themselves in the position, got us in the position we're in right now. Not about it. not going back, as they say. We are going forward, not cautious, aggressively, but in an intelligent manner, right? You look at the Hegseth uh, communications in the last few days, and our pearl clutching allies need to learn that when the U.S. says it's it's it remains a country led by a game show host and a marginally talented weekend Fox talking head, not a recipe for delight. But it's what we're in. So we're going to face it. We can talk about it. We can share our own ideas, and we can stick together and have the collective action response to the bad behavior. I'm Where are the 50 pages? Where are the 50 pages? Where are the 50 pages from the Epstein files that detail the testimony from the victim to the FBI, right? 4 interviews, 3 of the transcripts, pages, the majority of the pages from 3 of the interview transcripts are missing. The ones the ones that are available say that Donald Trump is a fucking angel. They read like they were written by Donald Trump's mother, right? No, that's not true. So now there are other people that have that information. It isn't just Pam Bondi. So it isn't like, oh, she put it in she fawn hall? Anyone? Anyone? Fawn hall? Yeah. If you're, what do they say? IYKYK. Uh, uh, Fawn hall. Is that right? That was the woman that worked with Oliver North in the Iran Contra scandal in the 80s that involved Ronald Reagan, General Poindexter, that's a real name, and others getting arms to the Contras and arms for hostages. That's if you want you want to learn some glorious things about Ronald Reagan, then that is on his bio, just like the horse on the ranch and Mr. Gorbachev tear down this wall. So the good with the bad, just like every other human. There are no angels, and there are few angels and few devils. Most people find themselves right down the somewhere in the middle, and we have to take them as we find them. We can't reform them. We can't hope that they'll behave better. We have to demand, like John Thune, still the most handsome coward in the US government. We have to demand, because he's our employee, that he do better. So, in any case, lots of fun talking to you folks as always. This was Tuesday here in the middle afternoon, northern Massachusetts, and snow's a coming, and storms and warmer weather and all of the things we have to be grateful for, even as we pray for the safe return of every member of the U.S. military, even as we at the same time fight for them to have better leadership and representation at the top that will ensure that they have a better chance of arriving home alive if they had more competent leadership with a better strategy. On we go. Thank you. Have a beautiful day. Kindly restack and tell two friends and all of that kind of stuff. And we'll be together sometime tomorrow and maybe have to be inside. We'll see. Thank you. Have a great day.